Okay, we call to order the meeting today at 6:04. Line item 1B, audience participation. Anyone wishing to speak during this discussion of an item listed on the agenda must complete an audience participation form. Please complete form and give the form to the secretary, and the chairman will call on you when that item is discussed. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. Item 1C, action regarding minutes of the January 2nd, 2025 meeting.
Yeah, so you'll need to, Madam Chairman, you'll need to just ask one of the members to make a motion to approve the minutes, or if there's anybody that needs to ask for an amendment or correction to it, then we can proceed with that vote.
The motion to, I'm sorry, what?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Motion to approve the minutes.
I approve, or I second it, or, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. just
Somebody-
say-
What it
just-
is? Okay.
Yeah, we just say, and I'll go over this in a minute in more detail, but yeah, you just say, I move to approve the minutes. And then we need a second.
Somebody second that?
Second it.
Okay.
And if there's nobody that wants to make a correction to those minutes or addition to it or anything, then you can call for a vote to approve it.
Okay, a call to a vote?
Yes.
Okay, I call to vote to approve that.
Yeah, we don't have that working for this yet.
Okay, line item 1D, action regarding election of not vice chairman, secretary of the Traffic Safety Advisory Board.
Yeah, so last meeting, of course, we elected Ms. Phillip as the chair and Ms. Irby as the vice chair. So we don't need to consider the vice chair, but we do not have a secretary. So, Madam Chair, if you can entertain a motion or a nomination for secretary, if anybody wants to volunteer, and if not, we'll have to, draw straws.
Okay. Volunteer.
Okay. So you can ask for a second to nominate Mr. Berghoff
Okay.
and then take a vote on that to approve it.
I second that.
All right, and vote on that to approve? Okay, and presentations, item 2A, Traffic Safety Advisory Board training, responsibilities, and functions of the board. Mr. Lee.
Okay. All right, well, Pedro's helping me bring that up on the screens. Yeah, so just a reminder that, I'm sorry, I'm Lee Howell, I'm the Assistant City Manager. So I'll be running you through just a few tips on some things and talk about what we're going to do tonight and what we did last month. So first of all, just a reminder that all the meetings are audio and video recorded. You have a little button on your mic, and when you hit that button, the green light should come on, and you'll be able to be heard on the recording. If you don't hit that button, we won't be able to hear you at all. We'll just see your mouth move. And so, if you will, just push that button on and off as you address anything in the meeting. And then, I think everybody has an agenda, but there's a link up here to the agenda and the any backup material that might be included on any future agenda. You can go to our website and find that pretty easily, and take a look at that from the website. And any questions about that? Just working. There we go. Okay. So last meeting, you approved the mission and the duties, and I'm just going to go back over that a little bit. This is the stated mission. This comes straight from the ordinance that created the Traffic Safety Board, and pretty straightforward. Your mission is to gain input and pass that on in form of recommendations to city staff and city council. So again, some further duties from that are stated in the ordinance. You're to create a forum for the public to come talk about traffic concerns, and we have our first member of citizenry here tonight to do that very thing. So we'll go through that in a few minutes. And then, of course, you'll always have the opportunity to work with staff. I would encourage any of you to contact me or any other staff member with the city to discuss any issues or ask any questions prior to any agenda or prior to any meeting that comes out, or if you have issues that need to be brought up and put on an agenda. So don't hesitate to do that. And you know, our duty here is to identify solutions to traffic issues and make those recommendations to the proper place. So I want to remind everybody that per the local government code, that as being a member of a board or committee for a municipality, that you're required to complete some training, and that training is on the two topics of Open Meetings Act and the Public Information Act. You can find about an hour-long video for each one of those that you can watch from the State Attorney General's office website. And once you complete that course and watch it through, then you can print out a certificate, and you can either bring that up and pass it off, or you can email it to our city secretary, Vicky Vega, or to me, and we'll keep it on record here for you. And you technically have 90 days from the time that you're appointed to the position. So
If you came from another board, you have to do it again?
if you have a certificate that's valid,
I was on the board of adjustment for years, so I don't know.
okay,
I mean, I've taken it before, several times.
okay. Well, if we still have that on file, I think there's an expiration time on them, but we can check and see if it's still current. And it. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll check and see if there's something in the file on you. How long ago were you on the board? How long ago were you on the Board of Adjustments? 5 years. Okay. All right. We'll check on that, and I'll get back with you. Okay, just some real brief things. This will be covered in your AG training, a little more in depth, but just mainly for tonight's purpose, and in between now and the next meeting. Madam Chairman read the opening part of the public comments. So this is an open meeting. It's available for anybody in the public to attend. Audience participation is allowed, and we would ask that anybody that comes in to fill out a speaker form, and like the one that I provided you, that just makes a documentation that who is in the audience and what item they want to speak on, so that they don't get overlooked, and you allow them the opportunity to discuss something at their proper time. So the citizen can address the board on any agenda item, but only agenda items. They can't bring up other business that's not stated on the agenda. Citizen comments are generally limited to 3 minutes. And you can respond or ask additional questions to clarify anything that they might have stated, but you're not required to. And oftentimes a citizen may, if they're just commenting on something, they may come to the lectern take their 3 minutes to give you their opinion about some things, and you say thank you and move on. You don't have to engage them if you don't want to. So to hold this meeting legally, we have to have a quorum. You do have a quorum tonight. There are 5 regular members, what we call regular members, appointed to this board, and you have places for 2 alternates. You only have 1 alternate still active, and because one person resigned, and I think coming up here in the next council meeting or 2, we'll probably, hopefully, we'll have somebody to replace that alternate. So you're required to have a simple majority of the 5 regular members, which means 3 people have to show up on the board. That can be 2 regular members or 1 regular member and 2 alternates, but there has to be 3 people at least that are appointed to the board to show up to hold a quorum and have a legal meeting. If you have only, like we had last time, we had 2 regular members and an alternate, so that was a legal meeting, and everybody there, including the alternate, would vote. We don't have an alternate with us tonight, but if there was an alternate here, they're welcome to sit right here and engage in any discussion, but their vote would not necessarily count unless they're one of the 5 positions that are on the committee. So if we had 1 alternate here tonight, then they could go ahead and vote with the rest of the committee. But if there were 2 alternates, one of them would not be able to, their vote would not count. So again, you can discuss anything that's on the agenda. We don't have an attorney here with us on these meetings, but if there was one, they might interrupt if we got too far off and deviated too far from an agenda item, but you try to stick to the topics at hand on the agenda. One of the things that we always like to make sure that you know is that quorums outside of an official meeting can be problematic. And that means that if 3 or more of your board members were in the same place at the same time and talked about city business or board issues without it being a properly posted official meeting, you could get in trouble. So it's okay if 3 of you meet on the aisle in Albertsons and you talk about the weather or whatever. You're not violating of the quorum, and you can attend the same community events. You can go to the farmer's market. Everybody on the board could appear at the farmer's market at the same time. We don't have to announce that. But if you're going to be talking about city business, it has to be an official meeting. So you also need to be careful with emails and what's called a walking quorum. And that is if you get an email that discusses the city business, if you forward that email individually to everybody on the council, first off, you should never reply all to anything, reply back to the sender only. And if you reply all, then you're technically deliberating city business without a proper meeting announcement and posting. And the same thing could go with if you make phone calls. If Spring gets a call from Crystal and they discuss business, and then Crystal decides to call Clayton and they discuss business, that could be considered a walking quorum and could be a violation of the quorum rule. So just be careful with that and stick to city business together as a board and you're fine. Any questions about that? So we try to run meetings with decorum. I don't foresee any problem with this committee at all, whatever, but with anything like this. But the chair should call on people to have the floor if you're going to be discussing something in depth or for a good while, and only one person try to talk at once. Pretty self-explanatory there. So we just did this. Motions need to be initiated by a member and seconded by another member, and then you can open it up for discussion at that point if there's any more further discussion, or at least make sure there's not anybody else that wants to discuss the item. and then the chairman will call for a vote. It would need to be a vote voiced or a signaled, and everybody can vote, and those votes will be recorded down. And again, when audience members or other council members are discussing, they're technically supposed to address the chair. So we try to, you can do it, it's fine for for members to ask questions of other members or whatever, but just make sure that the chair recognizes you kind of before you do that, so that it's, so that nobody's talking over you. And the main reason for that is the recordings don't come through very well when we have a lot of chatter on the side. So already covered just a little bit of this. The process, again, there's a motion, there needs to be a second. When you make a motion, you just say, Madam Chairman, I move to approve the minutes from last week as presented. And someone says, I second that, and you call for a vote. We don't have, other than those first two, we don't have any other action items tonight, so you won't need to call for a vote necessarily on anything else. You can discuss those its to the point of saying, I think, and somebody could suggest that we recommend a certain plan or something like that. If it's something that's going to require an action item, we can bring that action item back to an agenda next time, and you can take a vote on it if it's not labeled that. But if it's not, if the caption does not have action in it, then you can't you can't take a vote on it. But you don't have to necessarily take a vote. You can kind of get a consensus about some direction that you want to give to staff or something. And again, so that's pretty much it. We're still talking about the first Thursday of the month as standard meeting dates, and we can call or schedule a meeting as needed, or put out a notice that there's not a need for a meeting at any given time, depending on what might be need to be discussed or be on the agenda. So, any questions about any of that?
Is that going to be monthly or bi-monthly meetings?
I think we said originally every other month, unless needed every month. So, kind of leaves it open, I think. But I would think I would count on every other month on blocking that off, and we'll notify you as soon as possible if there needs to be one in between.
Thank you.
Is that correct with what your recollection is?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, well, that's all I had then for that. And if there's no questions, then, Madam Chairman, you can move on to 3A.
All right, item 3A is a discussion regarding traffic safety concerns at Basswood and High Country Trail intersection. That was something that I requested to be on the agenda last week, or the last meeting. Right there, the concerns are the same as the Grand Central Basswood intersection that we discussed. If we could put in the rumble strips there. They've already done the stop signs, which is fantastic. I've already noticed a change just taking my daughter to school in the mornings there. So, but just kind of the same things that we did at Basswood with the rumble strips at that intersection.
Yeah, Paul, would you?
Yeah, it's just like you said, the signs are in and they're working. One of them is kind of malfunctioning, but we have a manufacturer coming in there and looking at it next week. And I have not heard anything about any installation of rumble strips, but that's definitely something I can find out for you.
On that, it was, I don't think that we had like an actual formal conversation about that. That would just be my suggestion. However, the Grand Central and Basswood ones, I know that they've been removed, so I didn't know if that was something that, is that not allowed on that road, the rumble strips?
Okay. Okay.
When we did the rumble strips at the further south intersection, we actually tried 2 different types of rumble strips. So the RPMs are the little buttons that we space out every 2 feet or so. We knew those would work, but the TxDOT had a detail with a product that were the longer strips that were 4 to 6 inches wide. We wanted to try those out, but we were kind of concerned about the cost of those. The costs were good, but unfortunately, the quality of them was really bad. So I don't know if you were there when they started falling apart over and over. So we got with the contractor and, triple checked that they were installing them per the manufacturer's warranty, but they just kept falling off. So ultimately, we had them remove it and put in the raised pavement markers. And we coordinated with the inspector, and ultimately Saginaw never paid for the TxDOT versions because they didn't work. So we ultimately just paid for more of the RPMs or the raised pavement marker type. So if Paul was to go forward with putting in rumble strips at the other 4-way stop, we would do the buttons.
Okay, yeah, if that's something that we can look into at that intersection.
Yes, we'll definitely look into it, and I'll bring it up to the director, and I can find out, if it's a go, and I can let y'all know at the next meeting that they'll be put down or they have been put down.
Okay, the other thing for that area would be, is there anything like more visible for the speed limit signs through there? I think going northbound to, wait, what is that? West, actually. Is that west? Yeah. After the Grand Central intersection, I'm not sure if there is a speed limit sign in between those 2 intersections on that side. I don't recall.
That, I can't recollect. I know there are several signs on that road.
Right. I know that there's some after, if you're going towards Blue Mound, after the Grand Central stop sign, but going the opposite direction, I don't know how many or if they're spaced in between, or if there's any between those 2 stop signs. That was my concern right there.
Yeah, I don't believe they're within where the stop signs are, but I think they're further back,
Okay.
maybe 100 yards to show you what the speed limit is there in that area.
Okay. Is that something that we could look at between the 2 stop signs? I know that there's some on each side, but the people that are coming in from Grand Central and turning left onto, say, Basswood, they're not going to see that stop line or speed limit sign, until they pass through the High Country Trail intersection. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can definitely look into it and go take a look at the area and see where we can further put these, just give people an idea when they turn right on to the road and stuff, they see right then and there what the speed limit is.
Okay.
We can do that.
That was the only things that I was going to bring up for those, is putting in those buttons. Stop signs are already up. I saw somebody working on one this afternoon, and then the speed limit signs.
Paul, can we look at the ones that have the illumination around them?
Okay.
Can we look at the speed limit signs like going, it's eastbound on Bailey Boswell. When you come off of Bailey Boswell onto Basswood, you've got a couple of the speed limit signs that have the border with the LEDs that flash.
Uh-huh.
If we could do that, I think it would get more people's attention.
Yeah, we can look into that. I'm sure the same place we get the stop signs at probably carry these too, and we'll definitely look into them.
Madam Chair, before we get too much further, I'm sorry, I should have introduced these folks, but could y'all introduce yourselves and state your position?
I'm Paul Rosinski. I'm Public Works Operations Manager.
Trenton Tidwell, City Engineer.
And we also have Lieutenant James Crippen over here. I'll introduce him since he hasn't spoken yet. If y'all have any questions.
All right, moving on to item 3B, discussion regarding traffic safety concerns at Barcy Ranch Community. No left turn on East Bailey Boswell at Prairie Moon. Paul?
Yep. I had the opportunity to, Ms. Schilling's neighborhood, and we had some group discussions, and there's been a lot of accidents. People, they're not supposed to make a left turn onto Prairie Moon, but they are, and it's creating a lot of accidents. And Trenton's got an update on that we recently got some good news from TxDOT, so let
Yeah.
him take that.
So last October, the city applied for HSIP funding, which is Highway Safety Improvement Program. It's based off of existing crashes. So this was an intersection where we applied for funding for a new traffic signal. We were told last week that Saginaw got that project funded. And so the plan will be this year, get under contract for design and start the process. And then the funds that we were awarded were for fiscal year 2028. So unfortunately, that is a little bit of time. But the good news is that we have funding for a new traffic signal there, which will be really helpful for, like you said, people going eastbound, turning left, but also leaving Jarvis is also
Can we
pretty
get
tough
a no left turn sign up there then, so that people know?
in the meantime.
Because the way it's mapped out with the road, it's designed, if you're going westbound, you can turn into there, or if you're leaving, you have to go westbound, but people are going and they're making a real wide turn
Yeah.
and going into it, and there's the,
Yeah, it's supposed to be a ride in, ride out only. Yeah, we can work with Paul to,
The traffic light, that's before that intersection, right? Is there a light?
there's a light
Okay.
to the west at Wagley. But this will be a new signal. Yep.
Oh, Wagley,
Right,
okay.
Robertson. This would be a new signal right there at that intersection. So we'll remove the raised median pork chop, is what I like to call it, on the north side. And then additionally, the eastbound will create a left turn pocket so that they'll have a separate left turn lane into Prairie Moon with that project.
And the light should really help this area out, because even when you're trying to turn left off of Jarvis to head toward the bridge to get over, and that's the way I leave the work yard, and sometimes you're there 5-7 minutes. It just does not give you a chance to, to make that turn. It's very busy, like at 5:30 in the afternoon. A lot of traffic.
Anything else on that one? No? Okay.
So, just to clarify, there is funding to put a traffic light in there to be a secured intersection now at Jarvis? Okay,
There is funding for fiscal year 2028.
2028. So in the meantime, what if we put no left turn for Jarvis onto Bailey Boswell?
I have that note from Paul to,
my note was from Bailey Boswell on to Prairie Moon, but
From both directions, Prairie Moon and Jarvis.
for
I'm
the,
heading north on Jarvis, no left turn onto Bailey Boswell, right turn only. I know it'd be horrible for truck drivers, because I am one, but it's a lot safer to turn right than try to turn left there.
I think I'd have to think about that one and study it and talk to the public works director, if that would be an option.
Are you saying to put like a no left turn, so there'd be one on Prairie Moon and Jarvis leaving? Okay, so either way, you can't turn left, have a sign both ways, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can discuss it, certainly. I can't tell you if it'll be approved.
Because I'm just looking at, it's 3 years before there's a funding fix to put a light in. So in the meantime,
Yeah,
what can we do to make it safer?
understood.
I got a question. This funding's coming from TxDOT, or is it coming from council?
So the 100% of the construction funds up to the approved amount is provided by TxDOT. The city of Saginaw will be responsible to pay for engineering design, environmental, and any right-of-way that we need.
And that's being discussed already for our upcoming budget?
That is, we've submitted the information to budget for that to the finance director. We just found out last week that we were selected, so it's being put into the budget, or I don't know how the budget works, but Kim has the information.
Okay, so it's not coming out of the general fund or anything like that? There's no overages or anything?
Yeah, so we would have to pay for the design and the environmental out of the general fund. But given that the project's funded on the construction side, we'll accommodate it through our capital project planning.
Can I make a suggestion or just ask an out loud question? You know, they put like drainage on our water bills and stuff like that. Is there something that we can add that to the water bill to add for, you know, expansion or, you know, public works, like fixing streets or something?
Yeah.
It's just a question. I'm
No,
not
I
saying that's, I mean, that's something for y'all to discuss and,
A portion of the sales tax goes towards our street maintenance fund. So I think it's 0.25%.
Yeah, that's correct. So a portion of the local option, the city sales tax, is dedicated to street maintenance. And I believe since this is an existing roadway, that'd be eligible for that money. So, yeah, it's a good thought.
yeah, I just didn't know because we're volunteering on our water bill to pay these things and
Right.
whether we want to or not. So it's
Sure.
just,
Yep.
I didn't know if that was something because we're all using the streets.
Right.
So it's just a question.
Okay, anything else on that one?
Can I just confirm that the two requests to discuss are the northbound Jarvis, no lefts, and then the eastbound Bailey Boswell, no lefts? Okay.
Okay. Okay, Kelly, would you like to come up and speak?
I don't know how to work the microphone, so hopefully it's working. Chairman and board, I do live in Barcy Ranch. We are affected by this intersection. I would actually request we get a no U-turn as well. A lot of people are getting frustrated with the line at Wagley, coming up and making a U-turn right there too. And I'm concerned about the amount of traffic that comes through our neighborhood in that intersection already. We are kind of overwhelmed by Fort Worth, and so they use our neighborhood as a drag strip getting back to their homes. And so I'm kind of leery about removing the pork chop, as he mentioned.
Are you saying the no U-turns right there?
No
by
U-turn
Prairie
going
Moon,
east,
or
yes.
Okay, by Prairie Moon.
Going east on Bailey Boswell at that same intersection.
Okay.
I know a lot of people get a little frustrated waiting for the light at Wagley, go up, make the U-turn.
Okay.
So there might be a U-turn at where Jarvis is on Loop
Yeah.
Road?
Yes, they're making a U-turn right there where we don't have a left turn lane.
Okay.
Traveling, what is that? That is east on Bailey Boswell.
So they're going back towards Rayleigh Roberts? Or are they
Exactly.
turning into your subdivision?
No, they're going back to Wagley Robertson and turning right. That line does back up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Trenton, is that something feasible?
Yeah, I have that written down for, we can
Look
at
into
that as well, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Item 3C, discussion regarding traffic safety concerns at Cattleman and Prairie Moon? Is that the same one?
That's the street just north of that.
Just north of
You
it.
can pull that map up again. Whoever's doing it.
Okay, that's that you commented, the drag strip?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Should I get back up there?
well, yeah, you could probably, you live there, I mean, the one gentleman who's a constable for the sheriff's department was supposed to email me, but he never did for the exact spots where he was
Yeah,
looking
and
for it.
he messaged me and said he wasn't gonna make it. He's sitting in rush hour traffic. So, this intersection here, this is Prairie Moon, where we are impacted by everybody turning in A little bit further back is Sugar Creek, and that street is used to access Fort Worth through our neighborhood. So what we have happening is individuals from Fort Worth coming down Prairie Moon going easily 45 miles an hour. We do have children out there that play in the streets, so we get a little nervous. So our request is anything to slow them down, like a four-way stop. Currently, Cattleman's, each direction has a stop sign.
Cattleman and what has a stop sign?
Prairie Moon.
Okay, that's the only one?
Uh-huh.
For Prairie Moon, there's no stop sign, that's where we're speeding.
Exactly. So if we could just turn that two-way stop into a four-way stop, that'd be excellent. And our neighborhood did request if we could possibly get the stop signs with the LED flashers for that intersection. It would be greatly appreciated.
Do we currently, I don't know, it's just a question. Do we currently have city streets that have those humps, those little, whatever they're called? Speed bumps, that's, sorry.
No, I'm not aware of any because I know that fire does not like.
Right, and, yeah,
We are doing some raised crosswalks like we did at Basswood,
okay.
but they're not as high as the speed bumps, because
Right.
speed bumps tear up the fire trucks.
Oh, and the PD vehicles as well, especially.
That raised crosswalk, it's helpful.
So if we can look at that, that should be an easy one.
Do what?
The stop sign, make it a four-way stop.
Yeah, LED, it's a two-way stop currently, you're saying,
Yes.
on the side street, look at a four-way stop. Typically, if you ask an engineer, my response is supposed to be, we would run a stop sign warrant analysis. But truly, if the city wants one, they can add one, so I think that's the better decision here. I don't think a warrant analysis is needed or going to pass, so I think if Paul and Randy would like to do that, then they could make it happen.
Yeah, sure, we could be able to make this happen. When we first put them up, we'll get the blinking ones, but we'll also put red flags, orange flags, just so people see they can use the stuff there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on that one? Anyone? Moving on to item 3D, discussion regarding traffic safety concerns at ILT, International Leadership of Texas School on North Old Decatur Road in Saginaw.
Yes, I've received several complaints, and Jimmy's my next door neighbor and also brought this up. When traffic school lets out at ILT, all the traffic is funneled to the north in the right-hand lane, and people that want to go south will cut over in front of people and make a U-turn in front of people to go southbound, and it's kamikaze driving is what it is. So, I think Lieutenant Crippen, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, so he may have some comments on this.
It's the way, so when the current off-duty officers up there that allow the traffic to leave the school there, I'm not familiar with their traffic cones and how they have them set up right now. I can't promise there's anything we can change there. It's something that I can go up there and observe how they're setting their cone patterns up and see if there's a way where they can change the cone pattern to allow north and southbound traffic as it exits the school so that we can try to eliminate the U-turns there. But I'd have to go up there and evaluate it, look at it, and see what they're doing.
Do you know, are those constables, off-duty constables, or are they from the college?
No, the last time that we had checked with them, they were off-duty constables that are working that area.
Okay, because I know they do allow coming into the school, one of the constable or officers will stop traffic to allow the crossover.
Correct.
But the other gentleman at the other end, it's just that straightaway, and then they pull. I've almost got hit several times.
Okay.
And there is an officer further down at the other school that sits in the median, or not in the median, but you know, I guess he's working that school up there.
He's working the school zone.
Right, he's working
Correct.
that school zone, doing an awesome job, by the way. But
Thank you.
it's just right there, and so.
Okay, and like, I mean, we can go up there and, you know, I can't promise you what can and can't be done about it right now. I'd have to go up there and observe their cone pattern and how they're running the traffic in and out of the school. And obviously, if there's any suggestions where we could get the traffic coming out of the parking lot to just let them go southbound, I think that would be the most appropriate at this time, so. But I'll be happy to go up there, next week and look at it and see what we got and talk with them and see if we can't resolve it that way.
So is it a city concern or is it an ISD concern?
It's
Because
a city roadway,
right,
so it'd be a city concern.
because the same thing in front of Willow Creek, they're running down the median. And I know this is off topic and I didn't bring this up. And my daughter goes to that school and you know, people are driving down the median because they don't want to wait in that backup.
Correct.
And y'all have had several officers out there before, and then y'all pulled them, I guess, you know, for resources or whatnot, and now it's just mayhem. Everybody just going wherever.
Okay, and we can take a look at that also and see what they've got going up there. We're kind of limited on what we can do there right
Right.
now, until future road construction happens. We don't really have a lot of concrete to work with there.
I know,
So that's one of the things that really limits us there,
right,
so.
okay. And especially with that new apartment complex.
Is that something that we can add to the next agenda?
Yeah, put Willow Creek Elementary.
Okay.
One thing I'll just add to this topic. I'm not familiar with the traffic patterns, but I believe WJ Bose on the Fort Worth side, on the west side, is still closed.
It's open,
It's open now?
open last week.
Okay. I'd be curious if those U-turns may have been a result of that closure.
It's been going on all along.
Okay.
And so that's just a concern before and after school, or is this like a concern that's constant?
It's after school.
Just after school?
It let out,
Okay.
they've got about a half-hour window where they're letting everybody out, and it's mayhem.
Okay.
They did fix a lot of the other issues, though.
Do you know the approximate number of students at that school?
Trying to remember when we had our meeting.
Trying to remember best guess, probably somewhere around 900 is what I believe we remember, but you don't quote me on that.
No, because that just gives an idea of how many parents are picking up their kids.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I would say the number's probably slightly lower just because some parents have multiple children that go to the school that they pick up at the same time or something like that, but it does give you kind of an idea, yes.
Any other questions, comments, concerns on that? Okay. Moving on to 3E, discussion regarding traffic safety concern, school zone lights not functioning at proper times at Highland Station.
Yes, I received a couple complaints about this. They're saying that the lights aren't operating 5 days a week, and I think you've gotten the same complaints and stuff. I don't know if it's a solar charging issue or it's a programming issue.
Yeah, I can answer to this. There was one of the lights. These are older models, and one of the lights, the timer in it had fried, and so we were able to poach a part out of one of the old used ones in our work yard and have it installed down in there, and it's working properly now. And to my knowledge, they're all working properly now.
The
We're
one,
waiting for parts to come in that actually go to that unit, but the one we put in there from another unit is working in there.
okay. And I have noticed that the one that was out on Bailey Boswell, right by the high school, that one's working, seems like every day. So, and then I believe that wasn't this specifically that one on Bailey Boswell by going to the middle school? Was that the one that was under the main concern, Paul? Or was it High Country Trail?
It's High Country Trail.
Okay. And that's the one that you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
I had a question on that, of the responsibility of maintaining them. Does EMS ISD have anything in that for
No,
funding?
it's all city's
It's
responsibility.
strictly city, even though
Yes,
it's
sir.
for the school district?
Yes, we're responsible for those,
Okay.
setting them, timing them, and everything.
Okay, next item is 3F, discussion regarding traffic safety concerns on Bailey Boswell Road. Kelly? We're good on that one? Okay. And 3G is discussion regarding traffic safety concern at Comanche Springs?
Yes. So at Comanche Springs, right after you turn off of Bailey Boswell, heading, what direction is that? North. We have two schools, middle school and an elementary school, and our neighborhood only occupies the first 3 streets of that giant neighborhood. And now we are unable to actually access the school from our neighborhood because we have so much traffic coming through from the Fort Worth side. Fort Worth has also built out connections to Waters Bend, so they're also using our neighborhood to access Bailey Boswell so they can skip Wagley Robertson. And so the request is to get potentially a 3-way stop at Cattleman's and Comanche Springs. Yes, right there. And then the other concern is that big spot of land right there is going to be developed. And so we will have even more construction more traffic on Comanche Springs that will also impact us. And so people will just block that roadway. We can't even turn left to get to the school.
Paul asked if we needed a study. It'd be the same answer as before. I can definitely, if you want it to be warranted, I can look into it. We'd have to collect traffic counts before school gets out. But if you wanted to add it, you could add it. So, sounds like this is mostly a function of just having a gap, not
Yes.
necessarily
Yes.
slowing the traffic.
There's a median, you can see it right here on Comanche Springs. So even if there is a gap and there's a backup in the morning, we cannot even, it's a blind spot. You can't even see to turn left. You won't see traffic coming. So we've had a child on a bicycle hit there, I think it was last school year.
I've got a question. During your studies, once you go into, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No. It is more toward,
Oh, okay.
but I'm piggybacking off your
Okay.
question. Going into Haslett, you'll see that they marked the pavement between where the street, you can turn left or right or whatever. And so you can't block that intersection, like putting hash marks or X's or whatever. Plus, the fire department's right across the street from them over there as well. Is that an option that we can do as well, other than, that way, there's no parking in that, kind of like a fire lane?
Right.
Or a handicap?
It's a do not block intersection
Yes.
with white hash marks in the drive lane. So when traffic does stop, you don't block the intersection.
I'm familiar with it.
I don't know if that's something that, an ordinance has to be written for the police to enforce or something. I don't know. As
I
far
think-
as traffic patterns or.
I think that'd be a good consideration. So when you're struggling to turn left, it's not only you're saying there's no gap on the northbound traffic. There's not a stack of cars on the southbound, it's just that you can't see.
You can't see to turn left out, so
Yeah.
it would be, the dream utopia would be a 3-way stop, but if there's maybe a mirror, like, one of those mirrors, that fish eyes or whatever.
Right.
And then a do not block intersection, that might help.
Because the do not block intersection, at least for the northbound traffic, would help. But it doesn't sound like that would help for the southbound traffic, because you just can't see there.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
I mean, we can look into, yeah, if they're, like, if the site distance is the issue for the southbound, we could look
Yeah,
at
it's
if
just a
there's
blind spot,
other
yeah.
ways to improve that, and then combo that with the do not block intersection, but if,
Well, I'm looking at it as well as fire and police, because they piggyback, I mean, they're right on each other's bumper, there's no space, and if they have to get in for an emergency, everybody's gonna have to like cockroaches, you know, just trying to figure a way to get away so they can get in, so.
Yeah.
Correct.
we can discuss.
Okay, and I do know, working with the other HOA for the Fort Worth section, they are also trying to get stop signs placed across, down Comanche Springs to help slow traffic, because it is, I mean, people get a nice clean straightaway and they get going about 60, 70 miles an hour on there. Okay, that's all I had.
Chairman, if I could add furthermore about the subject on 3E, we did put in budget requests this year to start systematically replacing all the street zone units. So hopefully we'll be getting some money to that to slowly start replacing these, and you get more modern, updated ones, and it should help out a lot.
Are you talking about the school zone lights?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Okay, and last item we have here is 3H, discussion regarding future board items, issues, presentations, and concerns.
So I've got down that we want to talk about the traffic at Willow Creek Elementary. Is that could you restate specifically what we need to address there?
It's the backup going into the school. Previous years, the principal had left, everybody had to go out, they had to turn right only. Now it's a free-for-all, and that creates backup traffic, and then people would drive up the center of the median to bypass all that traffic, and you've got people crossing out and over, going east and west, trying to go that direction. And I think y'all have record of there's been accidents out there in front of that school as well.
It's primarily the people turning into the school that are going westbound. It backs up, so everybody jumps in the median and goes straight, and then you got the buses and other cars coming out.
And then we also have children that are trying to walk down that sidewalk area, and there's been accidents near that sidewalk area, and then that's just more of a safety concern.
Okay, we'll place that one on the agenda. Is there anything else?
Actually, there was, and if Spring wants to address that one, did you want to talk about Victoria?
Yeah, the intersections where Highland Station Drive and Victoria Drive, right up to, Blumenauer Road, sorry. And, if you're looking left, because you can only go right now, if you look left to see if any traffic is coming, the weeds have gotten so high. It's already bad, especially on Highland Section. It's already bad that the pole is kind of blocking, but then we add the weeds to it, and it becomes I would say, a really big traffic concern too. Especially if you have like a low second car.
That kind of goes into one of the things I was going to bring up. If there's a city ordinance on how high bushes can be at an intersection, so you can see around the intersection, or even trees, how high they have to be trimmed so they're not hanging too low to where it blocks visibility for cars and trucks. I don't know if there's a city ordinance on that or not.
I do believe there is a line of sight ability you're supposed to be able to let people see on when you build your extend your landscaping out. And there are situations to where we've had people, remove X amount of bushes to give more visibility, because, you had to just hope that was the last car and go for it. So we made them remove several of the bushes, just volunteered ourselves to remove them for them. They didn't have a problem with it.
I believe online, can't you file online a violation there if it's on the person's private property? You can file something, can't you, with the city to go and look at that tree and see if it's in violation?
I imagine code enforcement could look at that area, and they tell people now they got to trim their trees and stuff before fire, clearance for fire trucks and our street sweeper and everything. And I believe that's who made the request for us to trim the bushes back on this one place because it didn't have enough line of sight visibility.
Okay, but Gabe, isn't there something online though on the city site that you can file something about a violation?
Yeah, if you have a concern, we have a work order system where somebody can put in the general location and then it'll go to the correct department. In this situation, probably be Public Works or Code Enforcement. So, and Paul's right, as far as tree trimming in intersections, it's pretty common. We'll go out, especially when there's complaints, so to make sure that it's not impeding.
Okay, and right there on Victoria and Highland Station Drive where you're exiting onto Blue Mound, I know that Blue Mound kind of is that barrier to Fort Worth. Is that, is the weeds right there on that roadside? Is that, since it's on that side, is it still Saginaw?
If it's on the west side, it'd be this Saginaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what side it is.
Yeah, so that would be an intersection, yep.
Okay. I didn't know if that roadway period was Fort Worth or if it's on our
It's a
side, then
barrier.
it's Saginaw.
But
Okay.
It's in Saginaw, but being a TxDOT road, I'm not sure what the maintenance agreement is.
Oh.
And I don't know if 156 is officially closed out. If it's not officially, like all the final checklists are punched, then it could still be on the contractor to be mowing that. But that would be something, I bet Randy or check the maintenance agreements. Yeah, it doesn't look like that right now, but yeah. Street might be more updated.
And if you go south a little bit, it's both Victoria and Highland
and
Station
Highland
Drive.
Station.
So you can kind of see both, the streets are back to back.
And I could check with our city inspector who worked with TxDOT's inspectors on that project and see if he could find out if they still have a maintenance agreement to be cutting that back. Because as far as I know, it hadn't been turned over to us yet to have to cut.
Okay, and is that something that we can add to the agenda to revisit next time? Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, we'll place that one on there and see what we can find out on it, to either remedy it or bring back some information for you.
Cool. Any other ones? And if there's something in between, we can still email Vicki and you?
Yes, absolutely. You can email Vicki or me or just any other agenda items that we can put on there. Yeah, just a reminder on that. We're required to post the agendas at least 72 hours prior. So the meetings being on Monday makes it that a little difficult if we don't get the information for the agenda probably on the Thursday prior to the meeting. So if you could get those items to Vicki or myself on the Thursday prior to the meeting, we think we could relatively assured of getting the agenda out on time with the proper items on it.
Okay, I believe that we agreed on like a week and a half to 2 weeks to give y'all plenty of ample
Yeah,
time.
that would be better, but that's kind of like the drop dead deadline, so.
Okay,
Because Friday, you only work a half a day, so by Thursday would be the best.
Yeah, so that would put it a week ahead of time, but yeah, a week and a half would be great, 2 weeks would be, any time prior is fine, but about a week before would be about the last time we could assure getting it on there.
okay. I was gonna ask you on the, let's see, what was it called? completely blanked. The walking, like the rules that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, walking quorum.
Yeah, so say if like a neighbor came to one of us and wanted to discuss something, how do we do, can we just email y'all with that concern, or is there a
Sure.
specific way to go about?
No, that's fine. Yeah, if any citizen approaches one of y'all about an item that you think needs to be on the agenda, just let us know what that item is. We'll put it on the agenda.
Okay,
Yeah.
and are we allowed to put out like a public post saying that if there's issues or something that they can reach out to one of us?
Sure, yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
that'd be great.
I had probably two more things possible for that agenda. At Saginaw High School on Blue Mound, when the students leave school, they walk straight across the street. They don't use the intersections. I see that as a concern because there I am stopped in traffic and they're just walking around the cars. And the other one, I don't know, I don't think there's a city ordinance on it, but people dropping their trailers in the street, unhooked up. If it's hooked up to a vehicle, that's fine, but then when it's not hooked up to a vehicle and it's just parked on the street, it doesn't have proper reflectors on the front, for one, to be a vehicle. And I know other cities that have had it for decades.
Are there specific streets that you're seeing where it's bad, or are you just saying in general?
I wouldn't say it's bad, but it can be a hindrance to traffic down these narrow city streets.
I believe, no, you might correct me, but I believe there is a city ordinance when it has to do with RV or trailer parking on a street, a residential street.
There
Yeah,
definitely is.
that's correct. I think you're allowed 24 hours to park it in front of your house to load it or unload it, otherwise it has to be off the street. So like utility trailers and things like that, offhand's that a 72-hour deal?
Well, so you can't park utilities, trailers, or anything like that on the street at any time. We do allow the RVs the 24 hours for loading and unloading for people that are coming or going on their trips. Usually the nighttime officers have a little more time when we get into the later hours of the night as they drive around. If they do see those trailers, they'll tag them. Typically when we tag them, we give them 72 hours warning to move the trailer. If the officers go back and it's still tagged at 72 hours, then they do have multiple options, whether to tow the trailer, whether to write the citation for it, and things like that.
You can always call the emergency number and they'll go over and look at it.
All right, thank you. I just wasn't sure if there was an ordinance on it or not.
There is.
All right.
And on the high school kids not using the crosswalk, I don't know that, I think we've addressed it, and I don't know that we can make the kids use the crosswalk, but with it being there,
Well, there's Saginaw PD that can enforce jaywalking.
Right.
There's also EMS ISD police that can also enforce that. So it's about education and training the kids to do the right thing, because if we're going to allow them to do that, then what are we teaching them?
right? No, I fully agree. I have a high schooler that goes there as well, and I've beat it into her to use those crosswalks that Mom tried so hard for, so.
I mean, I don't want to
right.
remind anybody that there's already been a fatality of a student being struck and killed because there was no crosswalks. That's before they widened Blue Mound, leaving a football game to go home. There was no crosswalks, and so,
We put this on the agenda, can we get somebody from EMSISD PD here at the next meeting?
Yeah, I can contact them and ask them to come to the next meeting on that. Currently, EMS ISD does handle the children at the crossings and things like that for us. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's been something, they're aware of it. We've discussed it before. It's like she said, you got to herd cattle because people tend to take the shortest route between point A and B. And things like that, but we can definitely discuss it with them. I think they would definitely need to be involved in this because their input on that would probably be more important than ours at that point on how to control that.
Is it Chief Ramirez? Is that who's the ISD?
Chief Ramirez is the chief there. Typically, just in a law enforcement, we do have a chain of command. So like, for example, I would contact Captain John Grady, and then he would distribute that to the chief, and then they would send whatever representative that they deem appropriate.
Okay, I do remember whenever we were doing the crosswalks right there on Basswood and discussing all that, that he had reached out and said that he would be willing to train anyone if they wanted to even do crosswalk guard over there. So, I mean, that's something that maybe we can bring up again and to him, or to just the ISD, please.
Yeah, it's always something we can bring up. You know, as the completion of Blue Mound Road gets closer and closer, you know, the idea is you do have crosswalks now that are marked crosswalks, both there at Basswood and Blue Mound. You also have another one that TxDOT put in there at Rough Rider and Blue Mound. It's just a manage of getting the children to head, you know, come out, and they're going to need to head down towards the crosswalk that was actually placed for them instead of cutting straight across the street like you were talking about.
I think, I'm sorry, I think to this gentleman's point, consequences would have to be played out for these kids, because I can tell you I've dealt with enough teenagers to know that if you have one, you're like crossing guard and you're like, sir, you shouldn't pass there, they're gonna be like, yeah, you're gonna get cussed out, and that's about all that's gonna do. So maybe something like, you know, a ticket. It's something that should probably be looked at, maybe.
Possibly, maybe you know, wrought iron fence that blocks it in between there, so they have to go to the crosswalks if they're gonna go.
Well, I just want to make a point. I don't have a solution. I just have a concern that we need to bring up and discuss. And I'd also like the citizens of Saginaw to input in on this too, not just.
I think that we have time too to think about it and maybe come up with something that could work. I do have a question on that. So the crosswalks that are crossing over 156 or Blue Mound, those are kind of out of our control, aren't they? There's nothing that we can do on Blue Mound?
That is, unless the city engineer corrects me, that is correct, because it is a TxDOT highway, so they control that, the city does not.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we can enforce laws regarding to it, but as far as the lights or striping or anything like that, that's TxDOT's purview.
Okay. Anything else? I think I'm, okay. Then we can move on to 4A and call adjournment of the meeting.
I move to close the meeting.
I second that.
Okay, call the vote.